setting the goal and saying, we want to decrease something, and I don't know what that is, I'm not that smart. I'm just saying, is there some trigger or mechanism that says, this is what we're trying to accomplish beyond fixing the old pieces, which is, it's fantastic, and we told you that when you came to our place. It's good that you're making an investment, but at some point, are your citizens gonna come back and say, Jim, what did we do? I know we spent $15 million, but my backyard keeps flooding and the creek is closer than it ever was. Aren't there some ways that we should be looking more globally at those pieces and say, is it the amount of water, is it volume, is it flow, is it cleanliness, and isn't that part of that bigger conversation? So that way you can go back and say, yeah, we made all these improvements, and you know what happened? This happened, and this happened, and this happened, just like we hoped it would. These couple things didn't, so we had to tweak it. Because if we're not keeping score somehow, we're never going to know what we're doing is working.
So the closest thing happening right now in the metro, that's the only place in the state, is we have Drake University leading 6 real-time monitoring of all parameters of water quantity and quality in water and form, looking at agriculture, new developments, and existing, and looking to quantify what is the baseline, what is the status of where we are now, and as we install things, did it make a difference at the end of the day? So that was funded by almost every city here, sitting here. That's the closest thing, I think, to the monitoring side. And that's an effort through the WMAs, and we have a committee sitting together to say, what does the actual water data show us, and was this a good investment, or was this a better investment, or did this not work?
And does that show, a baseline of, this was the pollutants that we're going through, been reduced by X percent?
Yeah, looking at every pollutant.
Looking at, this was the rate of flow, as the discussion we had earlier, where the overall volume will be higher potentially, but the rate of flow is lower. And we've got the math that shows what it will be, but then testing it through flow meters to check, right?
Correct.
And that's the only thing that's difficult to really put your arms around with something like that is every storm is completely different. And so you may have the exact same readings on every single gauge and every single stream gauge, or every single rain gauge, and then all your stream gauges are completely different because it may be rain a little heavier in between or on one side or the other. I totally get what you're saying, because if you don't have goals, how can you know that you've reached any?
Right.
If you do all this. The other thing, I mean, beside what you're saying, total suspended solids, any kind of dissolved solids in your water, you gotta check. You can check all that. I just don't know how to do it. I with any degree of efficiency, or unless you institute, like, you get a school involved, where you, like a college, where you have people actually going out and doing that as part of their research or something. I don't
And that's
know.
where we did it. We said we don't know how to do it, so we had Drake University come and said, if we were to monitor your watersheds, this is how we would do it, and this is the exact parameters we would do, and we're going to do it for 3 years. And all the partners said that makes sense for these 2 watersheds, which again, not the same as all the other watersheds, even in the metro. And so we're letting the experts that do nothing but stream research lead the stream research, and we're simply providing input.
See, I would think that would be something that Johnson would want to do, to say, okay, these things that we did here affected this in a positive way. And now you have to take the inputs and you have to take into account the storms. But to me, it almost seems if we collectively aren't going into it with that kind of a mindset, then I don't know where we're going to end up. We're going to be taxing a small part of the community to make those improvements, and that's going to be great. It's beneficial. We talked about that earlier. We can't just keep going forward and not making those changes. But what are those other things that we need to be affecting that we're not? And we're not having that conversation. I thought that's why this group was here.
Yep. Well, I had a conversation with one of your members about, he said for himself, willingness to make investments in stormwater management, wanting to know that it's having an impact. And so I think that's some of what you're getting at. So that may be a step for us, is trying to decide what are some of those goals. And perhaps in between, we can do some work to come up with, look at what are some goals that some other places have done to provide back to you guys to take a look at and see what makes sense. Because again, what I don't want to do is try to do the writing by committee and give you a blank slate and try to create something. We'd rather give you something to react to and go from there. I'm going to put you on the spot, go ahead, Jason, but I believe Indianola is just finishing up a 3-year stormwater study.
Starting year 3 of.
Starting year 3 of that. Within that, were you doing some of that measurement of?
Believe it or not, we were not, because we were so far behind. And so ours is really base level. That'll be the next step into the next deal there. Piggybacking on all that everybody's saying there, kind of just been quiet, which is really odd for me, but I really don't know that the citizens really give a damn about the suspended solids. They don't want to lose their property, is what it comes down to. And we can put together all these great measurements and metrics, and to all due respect to you and stuff, we can try to do that, but we're the nerds of our community. I mean, the citizens who live on at 123 ABC Street, they see how the creek rises, and that's what they're demanding. They're demanding it fixed. They don't care what the water looks like. They just don't want the water. And that's the challenge. Regardless how we take it and sell this to our elected officials and to the public, I mean, 99% of how we're judged on what's done here is going to be on what is seen by the public, not what we know occurred. Hey, we have, this is the difference between a 3-inch rain and a 2-inch rain, or what this 3-inch rain now and 3 years from now, this 3-inch rain. They don't care if the creek was 6 inches narrower, you know, stuff like that. They care the fact that their property was preserved. And that's the political part that we're not legislating.
Right.
And that's the challenge.
It's like if the guy came and said, I got 3 feet of water in my basement, and you're like, yeah, but the total suspended solids are like, wait, whoa.
Well, a year ago, you would have had 4.
Yeah.
No, they don't care. I mean, you know, that's just it.
Right.
I think
I
that,
get what you're saying.
I think that also does get towards the importance of having additional work that's taking place with stormwater, you know, what you guys have been talking about, because, you know, adopting a new standard, if there's an area where flooding is taking place, that new standard on new development's not going to fix that. We still need to deal with that. We understand that. You are right. But adopting the new standard, potentially prevents you from creating those new problems in new places as you're bringing into. You know, I had somebody once say to me, you know, we show that the rainfall has gone up. What if it goes up, you know, another 10% over the next 10, 15 years? You know, that could happen. But if we do adopt a new standard, we'll be better off in 10 to 15 years with that upper level rainfall than we would be if we didn't do that. We may have to revisit things at that time because, again, the environment has changed, which is why we can be at this point now. The environment has changed, and so there's the data that shows that. Does anybody have any final thoughts? Because I am up against it. I promised you before 4 o'clock, and I was a big liar. It's still technically before 4. We'll be doing some writing up of kind of a synopsis to this, some of the questions that came out. I'm going to try real hard to get out a planned agenda well in advance so that I can get kind of some feedback, say, hey, what about this? We should talk about that. Because we do want to try to make sure that we're using your time as effectively and as efficiently as possible. This may mean that you might receive some homework via email of things that you need to take a look at before we get together again. John, Jen, or Craig, anything? Paul? These other 4 individuals, by the way, have given a ton of their time on work in between each session to try to pull things together that we'll be meeting with. So I really want to give a shout out to all 4 of them for their, I can't even say assistance, but I'm the assistance. Our next meeting is on the 28th. It's back in Ankeny, I believe. I'll check to make sure. One other thing, one housekeeping thing. I almost forgot. You guys are supposed to yell at me if I forgot this, but you did. I did schedule a meeting for November 11th, which, as it turns out, is Veterans Day, which may be an issue for a lot of cities. May have that as a date. I just wanted to get some sense on if we needed to move that or not. I never thought of it because in Western Wyoming it wasn't an issue. Okay, well, hearing nothing, I'll just kind of keep it there then, and we'll let it,
Bring something to Salisbury.
Des Moines off.
yeah.
Whole
Des
county's
Moines
off.
off.
Des Moines is?
We're off.
Okay. Okay. Well, I did reserve room for the 12th, the next day. So if that works, we can do that too. But I think it'll be down here. Look for that. I'll figure out what's best. I have to say I did not think of it.